Tonight, Mark Carney says he's ready to keep talking trade with the U.S., even as a spat with Donald Trump escalates over an anti-tariff ad playing south of the border.
Minister, when do you plan to talk to the president, sir?
The new tariff hike, Trump says he'll slap on Canada as Ottawa looks to shift trade away from the U.S., plus the view from Washington.
I think this is a little temper tantrum that a toddler will have.
A BC man scammed out of his entire life savings.
I was devastated, totally. I think of nothing else, day and night.
A Go Public investigation looks at how the banks failed to protect him. And the Blue Jays head to California with the World Series tied.
It's super exciting to be able to follow our team, and all I can say is go Jays.
What the Jays have to do on Dodgers home turf.
From CBC News, this is The National with Ian Henemansing.
The Prime Minister is in Malaysia tonight at a summit of Southeast Asian leaders, pitching this country as a reliable trading partner, while Canada's biggest trading partner lashes out again. Donald Trump, angered by an Ontario anti-tariff ad, is threatening a tariff increase. He hasn't provided any significant details, but it has added urgency to Mark Carney's trip. Trump is there too, and all eyes are on whether the two will eventually meet. Canada has, of course, been trying to negotiate a trade deal with the U.S. for months, but those talks are now on hold. In a moment, we'll have more from Kuala Lumpur on Carney's pitch to leaders in Asia. But first, JP Tasker with what some here at home think Carney's next move with Trump should be.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is in Asia to build new trade ties, but it's the relationship with an old ally that's causing problems. As the U.S. threatens an additional 10% tariff on Canadian exports, Carney says he has a plan.
Building at home, diversifying our trade relationships abroad, and being ready to work with the United States government as and when the time comes.
But senior Trump officials say they don't want to work with Canada right now.
This is a kind of propaganda against U.S. citizens. You know, it's psyops.
They're blaming Ontario Premier Doug Ford for derailing trade talks. The province ran an anti-tariff ad in the U.S. during the World Series, and it hit a nerve.
I just think it was terrible judgment by this premier, who has a bit of a reputation for being a hothead.
The Prime Minister should be trying to find Donald Trump in the hallways.
Former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's point person on the U.S. says Carney has to smooth things over with Trump, and fast. Preferably this week, while they're both at summits in Asia.
We do need to get the talks back on track because steel, aluminum, lumber, auto, they're all suffering badly.
But Canada's former ambassador to Washington says it's time to take a step back from the erratic Americans.
It's going to take us time, and we're going to have to go through pain to get there, but we have to use this moment of crisis once and for all to diversify our economy.
In the U.S., one Democrat is calling Trump's actions an embarrassment.
I think this is a little temper tantrum that a toddler will have, and it will blow over.
Senators will vote on a bill to block Trump's tariffs this week, and Democrats say they have enough support to get it through.
The president can be petulant, but the facts and the economic chaos are sort of closing in on him. And I think that will get the president back to the table with Canada.
Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc was at that table before things went awry. He says the two sides had been making progress and he's ready to re-engage with them at any moment, insisting in a social media post it's Ottawa, not Ontario, who's responsible for this file.
And JP, has Doug Ford faced any heat from other politicians over this ad?
No, quite the contrary. One senior cabinet minister told us Doug Ford is an incredible patriot. And the BC government says Ford did Canada proud by standing up to a bully like Trump. Now that province is preparing an ad of its own, warning Americans about the cost of tariffs. Ian?
JP Tasker in Ottawa. In the face of this latest upheaval, Mark Carney's trying to drum up new trade in Southeast Asia. But as Rafi Boudjikanian explains, with Donald Trump attending the same summit, Carney's focus could be pulled in that direction.
Prime Minister Mark Carney looking to make new allies on his first official trip to Asia.
We value a rules-based system. We respect trade agreements and the rule of law. We value
the free exchange of goods, capital, and ideas. We're a natural partner.
A message he repeated during meetings with the leaders of Vietnam, the Philippines, and Laos.
We have much to discuss in deepening our relationship.
U.S. President Donald Trump also in Kuala Lumpur for the summit of Southeast Asian leaders. Making it clear on his way here, he's still upset with Canada over an Ontario TV ad that ran in major U.S. markets containing an excerpt from former U.S. President Ronald Reagan slamming tariffs. Ontario Premier Doug Ford says he'll pull the ad Monday.
I'm very disappointed in Canada. They lied. I mean, it was a fraud what they did.
Will you meet with Prime Minister Carney during this trip?
I don't have any intention of it now.
This as he threatened a 10% tariff hike on Canadian goods, though short on specifics of what sectors it would hit.
Prime Minister, when do you plan to talk to the President?
Carney still has not spoken to him, but he did address the situation.
The Government of Canada stands ready to build on the progress that we had been making in our negotiations, our discussions with our American counterparts.
In a trade war, you need a general, not 13 of them.
This business group saying the federal government must get on speaking terms again soon with the giant next door before figuring out partnerships oceans away.
But I've said to the Prime Minister and the government very clearly, your first job is to stabilize the relationship with the United States of America.
But observers of the growing Southeast Asian market say it should not be ignored.
They collectively represent about 667 million people. It's a large opportunity for us because they have a growing middle class, a growing economy.
The Canadian government says it is looking to sign a free trade agreement with the Association of Southeast Asian Nations by the end of 2026. The year, incidentally, when its existing deal with the U.S. and Mexico, CUSMA, is scheduled for review. Rafi Bujikanian, CBC News, Kuala Lumpur.
The CBC's Katie Simpson joins us from Washington. And Katie, we know what Trump is saying about tariffs. What is actually happening, though, a little less clear.
Yeah, it appears, Ian, that the Trump administration is still hammering out the specific details. It's important to remember that nothing changes until there's some sort of new executive order or there's a change to the existing orders before something like this would kick in. We need to see some paperwork. The White House has so far declined to answer specific questions about the threat. Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, was asked, and he was unsure if CUSMA exemptions will continue, but that's only because he said he hadn't been briefed on the situation yet. It is a sign of how fast things change in Trump world and how it truly is up to the president to have the final say on everything.
The previous Trump tariffs came with some kind of rationale that they support vital U.S. national interests. To raise them now because of an ad campaign seems to run counter to that.
Yeah, so think about this, Ian. Trump has put blanket tariffs on Canada because he says the northern border is a security problem for people crossing illegally and for the flow of illegal drugs into the U.S. If he hikes those rates by 10% because he's mad about a commercial, does that undermine the argument that these tariffs are really about border security? But again, we don't even know how this will work yet. If he goes ahead with a hike, it could weaken his arguments that his team plans to make before the U.S. Supreme Court next month. They will argue that tariffs are a vital tool at the president's disposal to protect national security. The justices will eventually have to decide whether most of Trump's broad tariffs targeting countries are legal. Trump appears to be worried or at least concerned about it because he's talking about it a lot.
Katie Simpson in Washington. Hamas says it's expanded its search for the remains of hostages in Gaza after Israel allowed a team of Egyptian experts and heavy equipment into the Strip.
The team is using between 2 to 3 excavator machines and 2 to 3 trucks to search for our deceased hostages.
The heavy machinery was seen on the streets north of Khan Yunis as Red Cross officials met with Hamas on locating and recovering the remains. Hamas has returned the remains of 15 hostages, but under the U.S.-sponsored peace plan, it has to return the bodies of 13 more currently buried, according to Hamas, under the rubble. A Victoria man sounding the alarm tonight after he lost his entire life savings to fraud. But the most shocking part, he says, 2 major banks didn't stop it, despite major red flags. Erica Johnson has this Go Public investigation.
There's all the transfers.
Ray Anholt shows his daughter a list, all the times he pulled money out of his bank account, part of an elaborate scam that started after Anholt got a call that said CIBC, but was actually a scammer, pretending to be a bank employee. He tells Anholt, who's 89, that his money isn't safe. The bank needs his help to investigate money laundering.
We want to make sure that you don't lose your life savings. So I went along with it.
Over the next 6 months, under the scammer's instructions, Anholt withdraws his entire life savings, almost $1.7 million, from both CIBC and RBC, handing over stacks of cash and gold bars they'd instructed him to buy. CIBC questions why he's making the withdrawals, but still lets him do it. At RBC, no one questions bank drafts for $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 at a time.
They never once asked that. He drained his account, money coming in from his investments, going out as gold bar.
When he's out of money, Anholt learns he's been played.
I was devastated, totally. And I still am. I think of nothing else, day and night.
Banks are supposed to have policies in place protecting the financial interests of their customers, but a bank accountability expert says employees didn't follow those rules.
It's a horribly negligent pattern at both CIBC and RBC.
Both banks declined an interview, said they had robust and rigorous policies in place to deal with fraud. RBC eventually called a meeting with Ray Anholt and his daughter, told Go Public the matter is now resolved, but wouldn't say how. Countries like Australia and the UK have introduced legislation that could make the banks liable for failing to prevent fraud. When Go Public asked the Department of Finance if similar protections will be included when changes to the Bank Act are announced next month, a spokesperson declined to clarify. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Our Go Public stories come from you. If you have a tip for the team to investigate, send an email to gopublic@cbc.ca. In France, 2 suspects in that shocking crown jewel heist at the Louvre are in police custody tonight. Authorities say one was arrested yesterday while preparing to board a plane reportedly for Algeria. The brazen daylight robbery last week was carried out with a ladder and power tools, all in a matter of minutes. The jewels, worth an estimated $143 million Canadian, remain missing. In Alberta, a showdown is brewing tonight between striking teachers and the provincial government. The province is set to legislate them back to work tomorrow. And as Sam Sampson shows, it's a move that could trigger wider labor unrest.
So long, my friends, so long, my friends.
Elementary music teacher Tess Owen ends every class with this song. When she sings for her students again, it'll be under tough circumstances.
So long, so long.
It's really disheartening right now because we've been on strike for the last few weeks and we don't know if there's anything to show for it. It's demoralizing in a big way. There's going to be tears.
After 3 full weeks off the job, Alberta's government is expected to force teachers back to work with legislation on Monday. The province says it believes in a fair bargaining process, but feels the strike is causing students irreparable harm. The teachers' union has said it was looking at legal options to fight back, but others are concerned about what else might be in the bill. Union leaders from industries across Alberta signed a letter to Premier Danielle Smith, urging her against using the notwithstanding clause, a section of the charter which can be used to preemptively override court challenges. Neither the Premier nor any ministers have said they would use the clause in this case, but if they do, unions warn of an unprecedented response.
If we have a provincial government that uses the notwithstanding clause to crush the rights of workers, especially the right to strike, then other governments, especially Conservative governments in other provinces, will see that as a precedent.
If the bill passes Monday, it's unclear when teachers and students would go back, adding more uncertainty to the mix.
The normal things that I would be doing to prepare to be in my classroom, I can't really do. I can't log into my accounts. I can't organize my Google Classroom or anything like that. But what I want to do is just try, I'm really eager to see my students again.
750,000 students and their parents are also eager to get back to a routine, but that will have to wait until the province reveals its plan. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Edmonton.
The BC General Employees Union says it's reached a tentative deal with the province that could end an 8-week-long strike. Thousands of public service workers have been taking job action since early September, pushing for better wages and working conditions. The union says this deal addresses both and includes a 3% wage increase per year over the next 4 years. It will now head to members for a vote. The focus of the World Series is shifting to California tonight, with the Blue Jays getting ready for Game 3 against the Dodgers. That series now tied after the Jays lost last night. Thomas Dagler made the trip to Los Angeles, catching up with some fans along the way, still feeling confident of winning it all.
Now boarding for Game 3. Blue Jays fans are headed west for the next leg of the World Series, a dream trip to LA to watch a fairy tale playoff run.
I feel very lucky and that I'm retired and I can do this, because I know many would like to be in my shoes today.
It's super exciting to be able to follow our team, and all I can say is go Jays.
Dodgers pitcher Yoshinobu Yamamoto shut down the Jays on Saturday. A second straight complete game for the Japanese star, a postseason feat unseen in more than 2 decades, as the Dodgers tied the series at 1 game apiece.
Well, going back 1-1, it's not the worst situation to be in at all, so I'm liking our chances.
Now in the California sun, Canada's team will look to shine, sure to face a hostile crowd in one of America's most storied ballparks, and a Dodger squad who won it all just last year.
As a whole, I love what we've been doing throughout the course of the postseason. Expect us to keep doing it. But again, man, it's a tough task every night against these starters.
On Monday, Toronto will send 2-time World Series winner Max Scherzer to the mound, who in his last outing rebuffed the Jays manager in a clip that went viral.
He says, "I'm staying in, Skip."
A testament to his intensity as a pitcher.
Absolutely cherish these opportunities. So, when I get a chance to get the ball, man, this means everything.
As for those traveling fans, they made it to LA, and more are sure to follow, all hoping the Jays come out swinging.
The grounds crew here at Dodger Stadium getting the field ready ahead of that crucial Game 3 where both teams are going to be looking to build momentum in.
And Thomas, what's the big challenge facing the Jays in Los Angeles?
Well, they saw it in Game 2. Starting pitching for the Dodgers can be explosive. They saw it with Yamamoto. It's not going to be a whole lot easier with Tyler Glasnow in Game 3, another one of the National League's best pitchers, and then followed up in Game 4 by the single biggest star in all of baseball, Shohei Ohtani, taking the mound. Keep in mind, the Jays have to win at least one down here in Los Angeles. If they don't, it's over. They win at least one, and the series is guaranteed to return to Toronto. Then all bets are off, Ian.
Thomas Dagler at Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles. As the Blue Jays prepare for Game 3 in LA, there's debate at home about whether they're truly Canada's team.
It's our birthright as Montrealers to hate Toronto sports teams.
Why some in Montreal aren't hopping on the bandwagon. Nunavut's about to head to the polls, but will people turn out?
When Nunavut happened, we were so excited about the territory.
What's behind the rise in voter apathy? And stumbling upon some stranded whales.
Sometimes it's all you need to spice up your day a little bit is just to see a whale.
We're back into.
All residents of Alberta, you're asked to evacuate now.
A mandatory evacuation order has also been issued for parts of Kingston, Jamaica tonight as the Caribbean island braces for Hurricane Melissa. Both international airports are now closed, with landfall expected early Monday. New satellite imagery showing the slow-moving Category 4 storm. The U.S. National Hurricane Center warns Melissa may cause catastrophic rainfall and flooding. The storm has already killed at least 3 people in Haiti. It's the eve of the Nunavut general election. Over the territory's short history, voter enthusiasm has faded dramatically, while many of the key issues have not. Juanita Taylor now on the change people are looking for as they head for the polls.
Campaign signs are all over the streets of Iqaluit. Voting day is just around the corner, the 7th territorial election since the creation of Nunavut.
Like with every other election, I hope the turnout is greater.
Gakki isn't wrong. Voter turnout has been steadily declining since the first Nunavut general election in 1999.
When Nunavut happened, We were so excited about the territory.
Manitok Thompson was one of Nunavut's first MLAs. She says the government's slow progress on important issues like the high cost of living and a housing crisis is fueling voter apathy.
I think they are not seeing any changes from their basic needs. Those are the people that go out to vote, but they're not going out anymore.
About half of Nunavut's population is under 25 years old. The last territorial election saw youth had the lowest voter registration. Nunavut Sivaniksavut in Ottawa teaches Inuit youth about their land claim and their government. They've been talking about what issues matter to them this election, like mental health. In June, the Legislative Assembly declared a suicide crisis.
There's a big youth problem going on in Nunavut. Very heartbreaking. I just think we should choose the candidate that focuses more on the youth.
If we teach young people early on about the importance of exercising their right to vote, I think it would help a lot of people realize that they do have a say in the way that their territory is run.
MLA David Joannesy doesn't need any votes. He's been acclaimed for a second time for the riding of South Baffin. But he is encouraging Nunavummiut to vote.
We have this privilege entitlement to vote, and we should certainly take it seriously because there's other parts of the world that don't have this.
As Election Day approaches, the push to get out and vote is getting stronger. Juanita Taylor, CBC News, Yellowknife.
Tim Cook, award-winning author, chief historian at the Canadian War Museum, and for 2 decades a frequent contributor to this program, has died.
But 11 months later, after months of brutal fighting and terrible casualties, the war ends around here.
Today we can expect to hear
Cook guided Canadians and hosts of the National as we mark the many milestones in Canada's First World War legacy over the years. Most recently with Adrian for the 80th anniversary of the Netherlands' liberation earlier this year. Noting his prolific accomplishments as an author and curator, the Canadian War Museum CEO announced Cook's death, saying he was a passionate ambassador both for the museum and for Canadian military history. He has forever left his own mark on history. Some fans of the Montreal Expos are conflicted about whether they should be supporting the Toronto Blue Jays.
They're Canada's team now. You have to cheer for them.
The historical slight that's still causing a rift. Living with long COVID.
I certainly found myself wondering, maybe I'm just not meant to be well.
A personal account of the path to diagnosis and an unconventional form of treatment. Plus, a Canadian fighter pilot on the jets this country is looking to acquire.
The closest thing I can liken it to is we look at the Iron Man movies.
The National breaks down the stories shaping our world. Next. The Toronto Blue Jays World Series run has ignited waves of excitement across Canada. But as Sarah Levitt tells us, fans of the country's first Major League ball club, the Montreal Expos, seem divided about cheering for the Jays.
Gary Carter, the best catcher in Major League.
Brian Bloomer is a Montreal Expos superfan, or was.
We used to go to 10 games a year, 111 QQ, my uncle had tickets. And when he couldn't go, he said, guys, go enjoy yourself. I really, honestly missed them.
But with the Expos' demise in 2004, he's found himself a new team.
They're Canada's team now. You have to cheer for them whether you live in Montreal, Vancouver, Alberta, or Saskatchewan. They're, like I said again, Canada's team.
And then there's the Guerrero connection. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., MVP of the American League Championship Series, was born in Montreal to Vlad Sr., beloved Expos player.
And having Vladdy Jr. on the Blue Jays is like a built-in excuse to love the team.
But not everybody agrees.
It's our birthright as Montrealers to hate Toronto sports teams. I mean, could you ever imagine a sports fan from Boston cheering for a team from New York?
It goes deeper than that. Emotions felt perhaps more acutely with the newly released Netflix documentary, Who Killed the Montreal Expos?
Why?
Why is that team gone?
A complicated question with multiple suspects and no clear answer. Some fans still hold a grudge against the Blue Jays for voting alongside the league to eliminate the Expos.
Very sadly, the Blue Jays as an organization, through its president, voted yes. And when he was challenged, he said, well, it was a business decision. Well, come on. It was the Expos that introduced Major League Baseball to Canada.
Something many Expos fans won't soon forgive, even if the Jays are in the World Series. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
Now let's break down the news shaping our world. How a top test pilot trained in Canada helps work out the bugs in F-35s.
It's like Christmas for me. Every day I get to go fly.
But first, veteran broadcaster Gill Deacon feared that long COVID was her ruin.
Maybe I'm just not meant to be well.
Beating cancer had taught her some tactics.
Recognizing the worry train.
But it took time to find the game plan that worked for her.
And I feel amazing.
She is eager to tell others. I met up with Jill Deacon here in Vancouver to learn how she recovered from an ailment still shrouded in mystery.
How does it feel to be back in a CBC building?
In a way, it feels like home.
Jill Deacon was a familiar voice to CBC radio listeners in Toronto, but that all came crashing down when she started suffering from debilitating symptoms, a journey she describes in her forthcoming book, A Love Affair with the Unknown. We sat down in Vancouver's public library, and I asked her to read a passage about the then mysterious illness.
Why does a previously active, high-functioning, healthy, middle-aged woman continue to feel like an achy, queasy, wheezy bag of broken parts? What did I do wrong? What could I have done differently? If I'm not able to function as my recognizable self right now, then when? Will this get worse? Will I get to cut loose on a dance floor or dash to catch a train or stay up late laughing or sing at the top of my lungs ever again?
And to put this in context, this is not the first time that you were dealing with a pretty major health challenge. You were very public about being diagnosed with breast cancer twice and going through all of that emotionally, physically, the treatments. You're in remission. I wonder though how those experiences weighed on your mind as you were dealing with these symptoms.
Of course, I'd be lying if I said I didn't wonder, is this, I write in the book, my Google search history tells the story. What are symptoms of lupus and what does, I don't know, all kinds of central nervous system, I didn't know what was going on. So I did wonder, in spite of trying not to, I certainly found myself wondering, am I just made of faulty parts and I can't, maybe I'm just not meant to be well.
What a terrible thing to even have to contemplate. And at this moment in time, somebody might think about COVID and post-COVID, but as far as you knew, you never had COVID.
That's right. I'd never had a positive test on rapid tests. I'd had PCR tests for traveling and things, and even when I felt, my family members were sick and everyone was testing, I never, ever, ever tested positive for COVID. I never had any of the symptoms. Eventually, I did do something called a nucleocapsid test, which is something I hadn't known about, but I think more people know it now. It's a test you can get you pay $80, and once they established, oh, you do have the natural antibody, so you had COVID at some point, having never experienced a symptom, that allowed me to get into a long COVID clinic where the small amount of research that had been done on long COVID was more clear to the people working there. And that's when I got 8 months into my mystery of hellish symptoms. I got told I had long COVID.
Was that a relief to get a diagnosis finally?
It was interesting. It was a relief, but the relief was brief and short-lived, as I say, because there's not a lot to be done with that diagnosis. There's no vaccine, there's no pill, there's no treatment. Most of the stories about long COVID at that time were so-and-so used to be really active and dynamic and has been on the couch for 3 years. And that's what long COVID looks like, period, end of story.
Ever the journalist, Deacon started looking for her own answers. She enrolled in a University Health Network clinical trial in Toronto that explored using medication to treat long COVID. Her symptoms didn't improve and she didn't give up. Instead, she turned to a controversial approach that is not currently offered through public health institutions to treat long COVID.
And you're very clear, you're not recommending this for everybody, but it worked for you.
It did. I did a lot of research when I was able to do very little when I was sick for so long with long COVID. What I ended up stumbling upon as what was a solution for me to recover from long COVID was a neuroplasticity training program. The treatment that I did was a 3-day workshop, and then the work that you learn to do, you have to do on your own in order to get better. It's a combination of neuroplasticity and cognitive behavioral therapy, recognizing when you're having unhelpful thoughts and unhelpful reactions to your pain and your suffering, and shifting the cognitive behavioral therapy piece and sort of shifting into, okay, hold on, how do I want to think about this differently?
It worked for you. It worked for some people that you recommended this to, but you know that there are people right now who are going to their keyboards to say, what is she talking about?
To email me and say that I'm crazy
I have
or
long
wrong.
COVID and she has no idea what she's saying. It's a tricky world to enter.
I have heard from a lot of people who who I think feel insulted by the idea of neuroplasticity playing a role, because they interpret it as, oh, your symptoms are all in your head. And that is wildly upsetting and offensive to people who are really suffering. So I think there can be a tendency to maybe double down on your, I am really sick and I am having these symptoms, and maybe develop some kind of reluctance or resistance to having an open mind to what else might work. I do not judge people and how they handle long COVID. Long COVID is hell. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. And I say that as someone who's had cancer twice. It's really hard. But I will say that keeping an open mind to something that I didn't really understand, and I got better. So I can only say what worked for me, and I can extend my absolute sympathy to people who are still struggling.
And you're doing really well.
And I feel amazing. I'm physically 1000%. I'm back to being active and I live a full and vibrant life. And I feel I'm very mindful of appreciating what I have in this moment right now. I feel strong and ready and open for what comes, and appreciative for the fact that I get to be here for whatever it is.
I want to finish with this. As we speak here, you are about to get surgery on your thyroid.
Yeah.
Because there's a lump there.
I can't fit into any of my scarves, Ian. I have to have this lump removed. Yeah, there's a nodule in my thyroid that was discovered when we were on the hunt for what was the matter with me. I don't know if this has cancer in it. I'm choosing to focus on the fact that a couple of years ago a biopsy was clear, and that there are really good doctors who are taking care of this, and that I don't know what the outcome will be in terms of the pathology and in terms of the impact on my voice. I can't control that. What I can control is how I feel today and what I'm doing with my life, and that, you know, that's why I write this book and have these conversations and have a podcast about trying to help other people feel more okay about handling hard stuff. It happens to all of us, and I truly feel the power of just adjusting my attitude and managing what I can and letting go of what I can't.
There's so much about you that's impressive, what you've been through, the way you describe it, and your candor. And there's a lot of wisdom there for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ian.
In that portion of the interview, I focused on long COVID and her treatment for it. But I should point out her book, A Love Affair with the Unknown, and her podcast goes far beyond that and really features resilience on the part of a lot of people in the face of uncertainty. Next up, the former Canadian fighter pilot now testing the F-35s.
Think of any piece of software, any piece of hardware. There's going to be bugs when things start. It's our job to sort those things out.
That puts him at the center of some mind-blowing technology. The top test pilot for F-35s has deep Canadian roots.
1991, Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. Very proud to wear those. The only wings I have and the only wings I ever will have.
Andrew Soundy tells us what it's like to be enveloped in cutting-edge tech.
You're completely attached to the aircraft, right?
The custom-made helmet is a marvel.
The closest thing I can liken it to for anyone out there is if you look at the Iron Man movies with the head-up display.
David Conway went to Fort Worth, Texas to get the inside story from a Canadian Top Gun.
This is the F-35 G-suit, the skeletal G-suit, life preserver.
It's one of the suits Andrew Soundy wears in his role as fighter jet test pilot, a physically demanding profession, especially at high speed.
9 Gs essentially means my body weighs 9 times what it does standing here right now.
The F-35 fighter jet can travel more than 1.5 times faster than sound. And Soundy is believed to hold a speed record in the F-35.
What's it like up in the air in one of these?
It's like Christmas for me. Every day I get to go fly. So not only the way the airplane handles, it's a dream to fly, but also the magic that goes inside of it as well. It's just a dream.
We met the pilot, call sign Bundy, in Texas, where Lockheed Martin builds the F-35. He's now based at California's Edwards Air Force Base, but learned to fly back home in Canada.
And what's a Canadian doing down here in the U.S. doing that?
Served my entire military career in the Canadian Forces. Met my wife when I was on exchange down here at Edwards as a Canadian, flying the F-16. We got married, and life brought me down to the States and hired by Lockheed.
What's a test pilot do in general?
So taking an airplane from its initial inception and testing everything to make sure it works correctly before it goes to the field. Think of any piece of software, any piece of hardware. There's going to be bugs when things start. It's our job to sort those things out.
It's Bundy's job now to put new F-35s through their paces. He's among a rare club of the most experienced test pilots on the continent. And he's been doing it a long time.
When did you get your wings?
1991, Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. Very proud to wear those. The only wings I have and the only wings I ever will have. Actually, for basic fighter pilot training, flew the F-5. That was that long ago.
Indeed, an engineering graduate of the Royal Military College, he flew the F-5, which was itself replaced by the CF-18. The aircraft now set to be replaced by the F-35 in Canada's Air Force.
And what's this?
So the F-35 helmet, custom made for each pilot. There's a night vision camera integrated into there. The closest thing I can liken it to for anyone out there is if you look at the Iron Man movies with the head-up display that was in, that's essentially what you're getting with this helmet.
Bundy did much of the cold weather development and testing for the F-35 in the far north, so he's confident it passes the necessary test for Canada to be able to patrol its Arctic region.
Carries a lot of fuel, more than any fighter I've ever flown. I don't have any concerns myself on anything I've ever done with having the range that I need to conduct the mission.
So you've flown the CF-18.
I have.
What's the argument for Canada having the F-35?
That's not my area of expertise, that's for the politicians. What I can tell you is from an operator's perspective, all the good things that go into this aircraft. So early on in my years flying the F-18, would deploy to Goose Bay a lot. And a lot of the allied nations would be out there training as well. So the Royal Air Force was there in their Tornadoes, the Dutch Air Force in their F-16s, and the Germans in their F-4s, and we'd be out there with our F-18s, all working together, albeit in different aircraft. You look at this now, and the Dutch are flying the F-35. The Germans are a customer, and of course the Royal Air Forces as well. For Canada to be there and to be able to be connected with that same aircraft in that environment, I think you can't understate that. Being in an F-35 is like putting an F-35 on rather than climbing into it. You're completely attached to the aircraft, right? Through the helmet.
A lifetime of high speed and calculated risk from one of the top test pilots flying among the most sophisticated aircraft ever produced.
Pressure is growing on Prime Minister Mark Carney to make a decision, purchase all 88 F-35s as originally planned, or stop short at just 16 and pivot to a Saab model made in Sweden. The government is pushing Lockheed Martin to give Canada a bigger role in building the F-35s. Here's a quick peek at a story we've got in the works. Ashley Fraser investigates the extraordinary federal case mounted against New York Attorney General Letitia James over the mortgage of a modest home. James has accused Donald Trump of using the justice system as a vehicle of retribution. Take a look.
So this New York Attorney General Letitia James was indicted in early October by a federal grand jury. It's a move that many Trump critics believe is a blatant target of his adversaries.
With a fake, corrupt attorney general, a really corrupt person.
The charge, 1 count of bank fraud and 1 count of making a false statement to a financial institution, all over a mortgage loan for a $137,000 house in Virginia.
And the allegation is that she made false representations about her primary residence to secure a lower interest rate on her loan.
But the legal experts we spoke to say this is a pretty unusual case for an indictment.
In terms of it as a standalone case, it is highly unusual in my 35 years of practice, both on the defense side and for the government, to see there be a prosecution, an indictment brought for a single, relatively small mortgage loan.
These aren't the sorts of things you would normally expect the Justice Department or the FBI to be focused on.
The full story is coming this week on The National. Next, Nova Scotia fishermen come across a group of stranded whales.
There were some pilot whales and they were stuck on the shore, so we decided to go over and take a closer look.
Their impromptu rescue is our moment. You're looking at a group of pilot whales that got stuck near the shore off the coast of Cape Breton. Luckily, Mark Rankin and a fellow fisherman spotted the whales and sprung into action. Tonight, their fast-acting rescue makes our moment.
We just, stripped down and said we may as well try and see if we can do something for these poor guys. So we kind of just pulled the four-wheeler over and took a look on the beach, and there were some pilot whales and they were stuck on the shore. And so we decided to go over and take a closer look. And the tide was pretty high, so we got in the water and we got one out, and he kind of came back to and took off into deeper water. And then we got the second one back, and he was a little bit weaker and he took a little while. We got the third one out and he took off pretty good. And we watched the second guy for a while, and we're just hoping that they'll do all right. Sometimes it's all you need to spice up your day a little bit is just to see a whale. You put a smile on your face, So, the ocean's our home, so we got to take care of it.
There was a marine mammal rescue crew that was prepared to go from Dartmouth to Cape Breton to help out. It was quite a distance, and it turns out that before they could get there, those two fellows had already done the job. But our producer Joey points out those are big, powerful animals, so you have to really take care if you intervene, though in this case, clearly, everything worked out perfectly. From all of us on The National, thanks for being with us. I'm Ian Hannah-Mansing in Vancouver. You can also join me on CBC News Network, weeknights at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. See you then.